Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're told that some function is linear, and we're asked to fill out this table of values. So the only values we're missing is the x-coordinate when y is 22, and then the y-coordinate when x is 1, okay? So because we are told that our function is linear, that means that a constant change in x results in a constant change in y, right? Now, we can look at the slope of our function, which is really its rate of change. And that is defined by the change in y, denoted by delta y, meaning the change in y, divided by the change in x, okay? So, if we look at the first two rows of our table of values, right, x goes from -10 down to -8, and so it's increasing by 2. And then at the same time, while x increases by 2, y increases by 6, right? So right away, from these two rows, we can calculate our slope, right? Our slope, again, is the change in y relative to the change in x, is going to be the change in y 6, change in x is 2, and so we have 6 over 2, which is 3. Or if you'd rather, because it's change in y over change in x, you think of that as y changes by 3 every time x changes by 1. Or another way to think of it is the change in y is 3 times greater than any change in x, right? And that's constantly the case. So now, with that information, we can look at the y values. From 10 to 22, we see that the y value increases by 12, right? Now, x goes from -8 to some new x coordinate, right? Now, since our slope is 3 over 1, again, that's delta y over delta x, and because our function is linear, that's constantly going to be the case. So now, yes, y changes by 3 when x changes by 1, but in this case, just because of the values that were given, y changes by positive 12. So if we make delta y 12, what is the resulting change in x? Well, 3 times what would bring us to 12? Of course, that's 3 times 4, and so the same multiplicative factor in the bottom means that 1 times 4 results in a change in x of 4, right? As y goes up by 12, we see a resulting change in x of 4, okay? So, -8 plus 4 means that a is really -4, okay? Does that stay consistent with what we've found so far? That means x going up by 4 results in y going up by 12, and 12 divided by 4 is, again, a slope of 3. So, good to go so far. Next, we see that from -4 to positive 1, x increases by 5. So we ask ourselves, what necessarily must the change in y have to be in this case? Well, our slope, again, change in y divided by change in x, is 3 to 1. So if x is going up by 5, right, that's our delta x, then what is our change in y? Well, this one's not too difficult to get to. 1 times what brings us to 5? Of course, times 5. So, the same multiplicative factor in the delta y means that 3 times 5 is 15. So, with the slope of 3, when x goes up 5, y goes up by 15. And so, 22 plus 15, right, not just 15, but y is increasing by 15, changing by positive 15, and so bringing us to positive 37. And then we have the last row. Let's just check to make sure that it makes sense. X increasing from 1 to 4 means x increases by 3, and the resulting change in y is 9. And so the change in y divided by the change in x would be 9 divided by 3, which would again be consistent with our slope of 3. Change in y divided by change in x. And now we're done. So that's our table of values. Again, it was all based on the idea that our function was for sure linear, and so we know that the rate of change between x and y, or rather between y and x, is consistent, okay? I hope this helps. Thanks for watching, and if you guys have any questions or comments, please let me know. Take care.